Hey, and welcome to another Untimely Review. This one is a little different because I played and wrote this months ago, but because I wanted to get 2 reviews out this month, I thought, why not finally make this into a video? But that meant playing the game again, and honestly, running through the game for footage was even worse than the first time. My initial reaction to this game being ported to the Xbox One through backwards compatibility was one of what I'd call nostalgic optimism. The reason for this was because I used to spend hours playing 2 of this game's levels on a demo disc back in the day. Pour one out for the circular homies. After playing through the game, twice now, that nostalgic optimism was replaced with disappointment and pain. I really want to preface this review by saying that if you like this game and that it means a lot to you, I'm happy you're happy. But when I play this game, I am not. I'm not looking at how this game was in 2003, I'm looking at how this game is now and how I would feel playing it now. So, spoiler alert for a 17-year-old game. So, let's start with the easiest thing for me to discuss, the story. It's incredibly generic, cliche, and certain aspects of the story are telegraphed from a mile away. In Jedi Academy, you play as insert created character here, Jaden Core, aka Mr. Chapped Lips. A new student at Luke Skywalker's School for Troubled Youths. He's not a very good teacher, by the way. You and Rosh, a guy who talks far too much for having so little screen time, spends the first couple of levels under Kyle Katarn, who's the character from a previous Jedi Knight game. Then, your friend, Rosh ends up turning over to the dark side for a few days because when he was captured by the main enemies of the game, he was afraid of dying. Now, this motivation could have been cool if we spent any time with him outside of cutscenes where he was mainly a dick, but it comes out of nowhere as Rosh just seems to want more power and feels like our shared Jedi Master isn't imparting certain knowledge to him. That knowledge being dark side stuff like fancy lightning hands and kinky choking. The main villain of the game is Tavion, who after some research, because I totally missed this while playing the game twice, is the former apprentice of Kyle's nemesis, whose name I also had to look up. That dude's name is Deshaun, by the way. And her main goal is to resurrect the Sith Lord Marco Ragnos. That's a bunch of cool names for a bunch of boring characters that don't mean anything. Nothing about this story was particularly interesting to me, except for the choice they give you at the second to last level, where you can choose whether you want to remain on the light side or go to the dark side. In conversations with Luke Skywalker and Kyle after missions, this choice between the light and dark side is teased, but I wish there was more to it than having a last second cut and dry choice. For a game released in 2003, I guess it gets the job done because it gets to play from A to B, but Jesus is it boring. Being able to create a character is nice, and while it isn't deep, it does make for a more immersive story experience, but it isn't nearly enough for me to actually enjoy the story. Now, I know it seems like I breezed through the story because I didn't even talk about the boss fight / puzzle thing with Boba Fett, but that's because it sucks. Just like the rest of this game sucks. Part of that is probably because I usually don't like the concept of Star Wars games that take place during the Skywalker saga because I really think it hinders what the game can be about. Star Wars has one of the biggest universes in fiction, and the fact that everything has to include a Skywalker for it to be relevant is mad annoying. Off on a slight tangent, I think that The Force Unleashed is a perfect example of this. Having a character as strong as Starkiller, Galen Merrick for the real fans, being stuck in the canon of the movies makes him as a character feel out of place, and you know that he can't be that important because he's never brought up outside of the 2 games. The only redeeming part of this game is one singular part about the gameplay, and that's that you can switch from third-person lightsaber combat to first-person shooting. But even with that comes major drawbacks because you can't shoot whoever you want. Sith will be able to reflect almost any projectile at you, so it's necessary to just switch back to your lightsaber and just wail on them. While it is fun to swing your lightsaber around, a majority of the time you will feel out of control with exactly how your lightsaber will hit, and fights will boil down to who will get hit first. Come on, just look at this. It's like a bunch of kids hitting each other with pool noodles until one gets hurt, starts crying and screaming. Side note though, if you throw your lightsaber and it gets caught on something or a Force user pushes it away, you have to automatically recall it. And anytime a game makes me lose my lightsaber, it gets some extra points for me, so this is pretty cool. The shooting gameplay in this game works really well, and while I didn't use those mechanics too often, mainly because of what I said earlier, but also just because if someone gives me a lightsaber, I'm not giving it up unless I have to. Whenever I would switch to first person though, it felt responsive and had weight to the various weapons you get throughout the game. Using force powers are another great feature that uses abilities from both the light and dark sides, but you really only need to use healing, force push, and force choke because I would be on the verge of dying after almost every fight, and force choking and pushing are the only ways to push stormtroopers off ledges. Hearing that little is enough to make me smile even though this game is so terrible. But By far, the worst part of this entire game is the speeder section. The first time I played this game, this brought me the closest to my breaking point. Sure, by this point, I was getting kinda bored with the game already, and I thought that the lightsaber combat was a little too janky for me, but this made me want to turn off the game and never play it again. But oops! I decided to play it again for the footage, and you know what? It's actually worse than I remember. The speeder's controls are so bad that it makes tank controls sound great. The acceleration makes it feel like you're trying to enter hyperspeed from the ground, and when you hit something going top speed, guess what happens? That's right, you blow up, because your speeder is also made out of tissue paper, tears, and broken dreams. Not to mention, the collision tracking in this section obviously was not tested well in Exhibit A, and in Exhibit B, you can see me being bounced around like a pinball. Now, back to something not necessarily as bad, but still kinda trash, the platforming. The platforming aspects of this game also leave a lot to be desired because your jumping ability is tied to your story progress. And while the platforming does take that into account, sometimes you jump too much because it's so floaty like gravity doesn't exist, but sometimes you don't jump high enough because it feels like you're hitting your head on an invisible ceiling. Honestly, I don't know how you fuck up a Jedi game this bad, especially when this is in a franchise already. I can't imagine how bad the games before Jedi Academy were. How they made this game feel so unresponsive is insane to me. But everything that I'm saying about it is from the perspective of someone who has gotten used to modern gaming. Maybe in 2003 I would have loved this game's gameplay. I know I did when I played the demo, but now it just doesn't hold up at all. You know what else doesn't hold up at all? My character's chapped ass lips. So because this is a game from 2003, I really shouldn't compare this game to anything that I've played recently, but even thinking back to when I played this demo, I don't remember it looking this bad. The facial graphics are honestly fucking terrible, and really any texture that is close to the camera also sucks. But I think the environments were well done, specifically the levels that take place in cities, with my favorite being the Cornelia level, where you fight on a moving train. Probably. The reason why I like this level so much is because since everything is moving so fast anyway, it kinda masks how bad the textures are. The combat effects, like the sparks off of lightsabers and blaster shots, are still good to me, and the way that lightsabers cut the environment and leave the marks on the walls and other objects are amazing, and I wish that other games had the same mechanic to leave scars in the environment. Some of the level design is cool, like the aforementioned Cornelia level, but a lot of it is either old temples or super sci-fi type shit. Also, being able to choose which levels you want to play is great to me because it allows choice, and technically you only have to play 4 out of the 5 in each chapter, as they give you the option to progress without playing all 5. This would have been great to know, so I could have avoided that trash ass speeder level, but hindsight is always 20/20. Now, here's some of my extra thoughts that didn't really fit anywhere else. I love the stats that they give after each level. I've always just loved seeing stats, telling me how many blaster shots I took or how many force powers I used. The slow-mo that happens when you're fighting a Sith is really cool in the first level, and gets more and more annoying as the game goes on. Something that I noticed during the second playthrough of the game is, Jaden even moves from bitch-ass Rosh in the very first cutscene because he's invading his space, and I can't think of a better example of him being awful than him just being himself. Something else that I didn't really mention was the voice acting. Everyone sounds bored, tired, and underpaid to be in this shitty game. Here's a few of my favorite clips.
Wealth.
I can't wait.
We should go inside, it'll be safer. Count must.
And finally, this is something that I can't really tell is a good thing or not. Some of the cutscenes were literally only 5 seconds long where a character would laugh and then the game would go back to regular gameplay. Listen, I honestly didn't want to hear any more of the voice acting in this game, so this would be fine if there wasn't a 2 to 5 minute loading screen right after. With everything said, I really wish that I liked this game more, or really at this point liked it at all. There are There are some really good aspects to this game, like the lightsaber physics and the overall structure of the game, but there's also so much bullshit too. The difficulty curve is insane in the last few levels because you go from fighting a few Sith in each level to fighting what feels like an unending stream of cultists with red lightsabers. The story really isn't anything to care about, and some of the gameplay choices are either dated or just felt weird even for that time. I know 5-year-old me really enjoyed the demo to this game, but 22-year-old me is just tired and disappointed with the entire game. I initially said in my original article that I hope that future Star Wars games like this will take some aspects of the game, such as the lightsaber physics, as well as some of the more open level design that promotes exploration, and look what they decided to do. Still haven't played it yet, but I know for a fact that it plays way better than this. Also, multiplayer was disabled as I was playing on an Xbox One, so I can't tell if that would have brought my opinion up or not, but due to the core gameplay most likely being the same, I doubt it would have. So what do you think? Have you played Jedi Knight Jedi Academy on your Jedi console using your Jedi controller? What should I review next? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, and thanks for watching.